like I'm a doctor.
Ma'am, I don't care what you are. This is a crime scene. Please back off.
EMS hasn't arrived. You are required to allow emergency
Last
care.
warning, step back now or you'll be detained.
Then call your supervisor, because if he dies, that's on you.
The body cameras were rolling, witnesses had their phones out, and in exactly 8 minutes, Officer Cole Turner would make a decision that would end his career, cost the city hundreds of thousands of dollars, and expose a shocking truth. He didn't know his own department's policies. At 7:03 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon in April, a man lay dying on a city street. A doctor stood 10 feet away with the skills to save him, and a police officer with a badge stood between them, refusing to let her help. What happened in the next 8 minutes would end a career, expose a department that didn't know its own rules, and prove that the most dangerous thing about power isn't how it's used, it's when the person holding it has no idea what they're actually allowed to do. Before we continue, can you do me a favor? Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. What this doctor did next, and what investigators found when they reviewed the department's own policies, will absolutely shock you. Dr. Nia Brooks was not your average 34-year-old. While most people her age were still establishing their careers, Nia was already one of the most respected emergency physicians in the city. But here's the thing, she wasn't just working in emergency medicine. She was saving lives that other doctors had given up on. Nia held a medical degree from Johns Hopkins. She had completed her emergency medicine residency at Massachusetts General Hospital, one of the top 3 programs in the country. She had worked in the busiest trauma centers in Baltimore and Boston before taking a position at County General Hospital. In 9 years of practice, she had treated over 10,000 emergency patients. Her colleagues called her the miracle worker because she had a talent for keeping people alive when the odds said they shouldn't be. Nia specialized in emergency trauma medicine. If you don't know what that means, let me break it down simply. When someone comes into the ER dying from violence, accidents, or sudden catastrophe, Nia was the person who fought to keep them breathing. She could read vital signs instantly. She could spot life-threatening conditions in seconds. She knew exactly what to do and how fast it needed to happen. On that particular Saturday in April, Nia was driving home from a 12-hour shift at County General. The ER had been chaos all day. 2 shootings, 1 car accident, a cardiac arrest, a dozen other emergencies. She was exhausted, running on coffee and adrenaline. She was wearing navy blue scrubs with a dark coat over them. Her hospital ID badge was clipped directly to her scrub top photo, credentials, and County General Hospital, emergency medicine printed in bold. Her stethoscope hung around her neck. She wasn't carrying anything. No medical bag, no purse, just her phone in her coat pocket and car keys in her hand. The afternoon was overcast and cool. April weather in the city meant unpredictable temperatures. The sun was up but hidden behind gray clouds. That time of evening when light starts to fade but it's not quite dusk. The streets were busy with weekend activity. People coming home, heading out, walking dogs. Nia lived in a residential neighborhood about 15 minutes from the hospital. Working class row houses, corner stores, the kind of area where everyone knew their neighbors. She was 2 blocks from her apartment when she saw the lights, red and blue flashing against brick row houses. A police cruiser in the middle of the street, yellow crime scene tape being stretched across the road. Nia slowed down. Force of habit. 9 years in emergency medicine meant you always looked, always assessed, always wondered if someone needed help. That's when she saw him. A man lying on the street, on his side, not moving. Dark stains spreading on the pavement beneath his head. Nia's training kicked in immediately. Male, 30s, unconscious, head trauma, significant blood loss, no visible movement. She pulled over and parked, got out, walked toward the scene. The officer standing near the tape saw her approaching and held up his hand. This was Officer Cole Turner, white male, late 20s, 4 years on the force. Average height, stocky build, the kind of cop who followed procedures exactly as he thought they were written without ever actually reading the policy manual. Cole had worked plenty of crime scenes. He knew the drill as he understood it. Secure the perimeter, preserve evidence, wait for detectives and paramedics. Don't let civilians mess up the scene. What Cole didn't know was that his understanding was wrong. The department's actual written policy, sitting in a binder he'd never opened since academy graduation, explicitly stated that medical emergencies take priority over evidence preservation. That licensed medical professionals should be allowed to provide emergency care when EMS is delayed. That saving lives comes before securing crime scenes. But Cole had never read that policy. His training officer hadn't emphasized it. His sergeant had never mentioned it. He operated on what he'd picked up from other officers, which was often wrong. "Ma'am, you need to stay back," Cole said. Nia stopped at the tape line. "I'm a doctor, County General ER. How long has he been down?" Cole looked at her, then at the victim, then back. "About 10 minutes. EMS is on the way." Nia looked past him at the man on the ground. She could see his chest moving. Shallow breaths, fast, too fast. "What happened?" she asked. "Assault. That's all I can tell you. Please step back from the tape." Nia studied the victim, the positioning, the blood, the breathing pattern. Something was wrong, really wrong. "Has anyone checked his airway?" "Ma'am, I need you to move back." "Officer, I'm asking if anyone has performed a medical assessment. EMS will handle it when they get here." "When were they dispatched?" Cole checked his watch. 9 minutes ago. Nia did the math. Average EMS response time was 12 to 15 minutes for non-critical calls. This scene had probably been called in as an assault, not a medical emergency. They might not even have a trauma unit responding. She looked at the victim again. His breathing had changed, even more shallow, rapid, and irregular. Bad signs, really bad signs. "I need to assess him," Nia said, her voice calm but firm. "No, ma'am, this is a crime scene. That man might be dying. EMS will be here soon." Soon might not be fast enough. Cole's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, I'm not going to ask you again." Step away from the tape, Nia pointed to the hospital badge clipped to her scrub top, her credentials clearly visible. "Dr. Nia Brooks, Emergency Medicine, County General Hospital. I'm standing here in my hospital scrubs. I'm qualified to provide emergency care. That man needs medical attention now." Cole glanced at the badge but didn't really look. "Ma'am, I don't care if you're the Surgeon General. This is a secured crime scene and you need to leave." Quick question for you watching. Have you ever seen someone in authority who didn't actually know the rules they were supposed to follow? Type yes or no in the comments. Nia felt her frustration rising but kept her voice level. "Officer, I understand you're trying to preserve the scene, but if that man has a serious head injury, every minute without treatment matters. I can do a basic assessment without disturbing evidence." Cole shook his head. "No civilians pass this line. Department policy. I'm not a civilian. I'm a licensed physician. You're not EMS. You're not fire department. That means you're a civilian." Nia gestured to her scrubs. The hospital badge clipped clearly to her chest. "I'm literally in my work uniform. My credentials are right here. County General Emergency Medicine." Cole barely glanced at the badge. "Doesn't matter. You're not authorized personnel for this scene." Nia looked at the man again. His breathing was getting worse. She could see it from here. The chest rising and falling too fast, too shallow. The kind of pattern that meant the body was failing. "For God's sake, I'm a doctor. Let me help him." Cole's voice got harder. "Ma'am, I don't care what you are. This is a crime scene. Please back off." Nia tried a different approach. "When was EMS dispatched?" "I already told you. 9 minutes ago." "And when are they expected?" "Any minute now." "Any minute could be too late. Look at his breathing. It's deteriorating. I can see it from here. The ambulance is coming." "You are required to allow emergency care," Nia said, her voice sharp now. Cole pulled out his handcuffs and held them up. "Last warning, step back now or you'll be detained." Nia stared at him. She looked at the handcuffs. She looked at the man on the ground. She looked at Cole's face. He was serious. He would actually arrest her for trying to save someone's life. "Then call your supervisor," Nia said quietly, "because if he dies, that's on you." Cole pointed to the sidewalk behind her. "Ma'am, step behind the tape, now." Nia didn't move immediately. She was calculating. The man needed help. EMS wasn't here. This officer was refusing access. She could push harder, get arrested, and the victim would still be lying there. Or she could step back, follow orders, and hope the paramedics arrived in time. Neither option was acceptable. She stepped back from the tape, but she didn't leave. She pulled out her phone and dialed 911. Cole watched her. "What are you doing?" "Calling to check EMS status," Nia said. "This is a medical emergency, and they need to expedite." The 911 operator answered. Nia identified herself as a physician on scene and requested immediate EMS upgrade to a trauma response for a head injury victim showing signs of respiratory distress. The operator confirmed the ambulance was en route, ETA 3 to 4 minutes. Nia hung up and stayed where she was, watching the victim from behind the tape. Residents from nearby row houses had started coming outside. They heard the commotion. They saw the police lights. The street was filling with people. Weekend crowds, neighbors, people walking by. Some were filming on their phones. A woman called out from the growing crowd, "Let her help him. She's a doctor." Cole ignored her. Another voice. "What's wrong with you? She's trying to save his life. A man yelled, "Look at her badge. She works at County General." The crowd was getting louder. More people gathering. More phones out. Cole got on his radio and called for backup. He said he had a hostile crowd forming and needed additional units. The man on the ground made a sound, a wet, gurgling noise. Nia recognized it immediately. That was the sound of someone aspirating, blood or fluid in the airway, the sound of someone drowning. She started recording on her phone, pointed the camera at the victim, at Cole, at the scene. If this man died, there would be a record. "Officer," Nia said, her voice loud and clear for the recording. "That man is aspirating. He's choking on blood or fluid. He needs to be repositioned immediately, or he will die. I'm a licensed emergency physician. I'm willing to provide care. Are you refusing to allow me access?" Cole turned to face her. "Ma'am, for the last time, step away. I'm asking you a direct question. Are you refusing to allow emergency medical care for a man who is actively dying? I'm securing a crime scene. That's not what I asked. Yes or no? Are you preventing me from providing emergency medical intervention?" Cole didn't answer. The wet gurgling sound got worse. The man's body started to convulse. "He's seizing," Nia shouted. "He's going to die. Let me help him." Cole looked at the victim, panic starting to show on his face. Nia moved toward the tape line. Cole grabbed her arm. "Stop." Nia pulled away. "Don't touch me. A man is dying." Cole pulled out his cuffs. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." The crowd erupted, people shouting, phones recording from multiple angles. "You're arresting a doctor?" someone yelled. "Let her save him. What's wrong with you?" Cole hesitated. He looked at Nia. He looked at the victim, who was now clearly in medical distress. He looked at the cameras. In the distance, sirens. The ambulance was finally close. Cole made his decision. He grabbed Nia's wrist and pulled her away from the victim. "You're under arrest for interference." He cuffed her. The crowd booed and shouted. Nia didn't resist. She let him cuff her. She stood there, hands behind her back, watching the man on the ground struggle for breath. 30 seconds later, the ambulance arrived. The paramedics jumped out. They saw the victim and immediately went to work. One checked vitals while another prepared oxygen. Within seconds, they had him stabilized and were preparing for transport. The lead paramedic, a man named James Rodriguez, who Nia had worked with at the hospital, looked up and saw her standing there in her scrubs with her hands still behind her back in handcuffs. "Dr. Brooks? What the hell? Officer here wouldn't let me provide care," Nia said calmly. "I tried to help. He arrested me instead." James looked at Cole with disgust. He turned back to his patient and got him loaded into the ambulance. Before they drove away, James walked over to Cole. "You stopped a doctor from helping? Are you out of your mind?" Cole didn't answer. The ambulance left, sirens wailing. "Do you think the officer realized how badly he screwed up? Drop a comment below." Cole uncuffed Nia. "You're free to go," he said quietly. "I need your badge number, your full name, and your supervisor's name," Nia said, rubbing her wrist. Cole gave her the information. "Badge 3742, Cole James Turner, Supervisor Lieutenant Patricia Reeves." "Thank you," Nia said. "You should know that man could have died because you prevented emergency medical care. I'm a licensed physician. My badge is literally clipped to my chest. And you arrested me for trying to help. I'll be filing a formal complaint to make sure this never happens to anyone else." She walked back to her car and drove home. The April evening was getting darker now, the gray clouds making everything dim earlier than usual. Most people who have a confrontation with police might complain to friends. They might post about it on social media. Some might even consider filing a complaint, but ultimately decide it's not worth the hassle. But Nia wasn't most people. She was a physician with institutional backing, legal resources, and video evidence of an officer violating both state law and departmental policy. The next morning, Nia went to the hospital and met with the legal department. She provided her account, showed them the video she'd recorded, and explained the medical emergency she'd witnessed. The hospital's legal team immediately pulled the police department's own policy. What they found was stunning. The police department had a written policy, Policy 4.17, Medical Emergencies at Crime Scenes, that explicitly stated medical care takes priority over evidence preservation. The policy specifically mentioned that licensed medical professionals should be allowed to provide emergency intervention when EMS is delayed. Cole had violated his own department's written policy. The legal team also found state statute 23-412, which made it a misdemeanor to willfully obstruct emergency medical care. Cole hadn't just made a bad call, he'd broken the law, a law he should have known because it was in his department's policy manual. The hospital filed a formal complaint with the police department, the city attorney's office, and the state medical board. They included the video evidence, medical documentation of the victim's condition, and copies of the department's own policies that Cole had violated. They also tracked down the victim. His name was Terrell Jackson, 32 years old. He'd been beaten outside an apartment building and suffered a skull fracture and severe concussion. The paramedics' report noted that when they arrived, the victim was in respiratory distress and aspirating blood. Without immediate intervention, he likely would have died. Terrell was in the ICU for 3 days, but survived. His family was informed about the doctor who tried to help and the officer who prevented it. The police department received the complaint on Monday. By Tuesday morning, Cole was on administrative leave. Internal Affairs assigned the case to Lieutenant Patricia Reeves, the same supervisor Nia had told Cole to call. Patricia had been with the department for 16 years. She'd investigated hundreds of complaints, but when she pulled the body camera footage, she knew this was going to be bad. She called Cole in for an interview on Wednesday. "Why did you refuse to allow Dr. Brooks to provide medical care?" Patricia asked. "I was following crime scene protocol," Cole said. "Preserve the scene, wait for EMS." "What protocol?" Patricia pulled out a binder. "This is the department policy manual. Have you read it? I went through it in the academy." Recently, Cole was quiet. Patricia opened to a marked page. Policy 4.17, Medical Emergencies at Crime Scenes. She read aloud the section about allowing licensed medical professionals to provide emergency care. "When did you last review this policy?" "I didn't remember that part," Cole admitted. "You didn't remember that saving lives takes priority over evidence? Or you never knew it in the first place?" Cole didn't answer. Patricia continued. "Not only did you violate department policy, you also violated state law. Obstructing emergency medical care is a criminal offense in this state. Did you know that?" "No, ma'am." "You arrested a physician for trying to save a life. You handcuffed her while a man was choking on his own blood, and you did all this while violating our own written policies. Do you understand how serious this is?" Cole's face had gone pale. "I thought I was doing the right thing." "You thought wrong, and you never bothered to check whether your assumptions matched actual policy." The interview lasted 68 minutes. By the end, Patricia had documented not just Cole's actions that night, but a pattern of officers operating on assumptions rather than actual policy knowledge. The investigation revealed something disturbing. When Patricia randomly tested other officers on department policies, over 60% couldn't correctly cite the medical emergency protocol. Many didn't even know it existed. The department had the right policies. They'd been written years ago after consultation with medical and legal experts, but nobody had enforced them. Nobody had trained on them. Officers graduated from the academy and never looked at the policy manual again. Cole had violated written policy, but the department had failed to make sure officers knew those policies existed. The investigation took 3 weeks. The findings were released in a detailed report. Cole had violated policy 4.17. He had violated state statute 23-412. He had demonstrated a fundamental lack of knowledge about the rules governing his job. He had endangered a citizen's life through ignorance of basic policy. The department recommended termination. But the report went further. It documented the systemic failure to train officers on existing policies. It noted that Cole wasn't the only officer who didn't know the medical emergency protocol. It recommended mandatory annual training on all critical policies, with testing to verify knowledge retention. Cole was fired 3 weeks after the incident. He didn't appeal. His union representative told him the case was unwinnable. The body camera footage showed everything. The department's own policies condemned him. But there was more. The state attorney general's office reviewed the case and decided to prosecute Cole for obstructing emergency medical care. Cole pled guilty to a misdemeanor charge. He was sentenced to 100 hours of community service and a $1,500 fine. He also agreed never to work in law enforcement again. Terrell Jackson, the assault victim, survived. His family filed a civil lawsuit against the city for the delay in medical care. The city settled for $285,000 rather than go to trial. As part of the settlement, the city agreed to implement the recommendations from the Internal Affairs report. Every officer would undergo annual training on critical policies, including medical emergencies at crime scenes. New officers would be tested on these policies before being allowed to work independently. Supervisors would conduct regular policy reviews at roll call. The policies didn't change. They didn't need to. They were already good policies. The department just needed to actually follow them. If you think more departments need to enforce the policies they already have, type facts below. Nia continued her work at County General. The incident became part of her story, but it didn't define her. She kept saving lives, kept teaching residents, kept being the miracle worker in the ER. The video Nia recorded went viral 6 weeks later when the lawsuit was filed. It was viewed over 3 million times. Medical organizations shared it as an example of the duty to provide care. Legal experts analyzed it as a case study in governmental liability. Some people praised Nia for standing up, others criticized her for confronting the officer. Some said she should have backed off when threatened with arrest. Others said she did exactly what her medical oath required. But here's what nobody could deny. She was right. The officer was wrong. And if she hadn't pushed back, Terrell Jackson would likely be dead. Let's talk about the bigger picture here. This story isn't just about one doctor and one cop. It's about a systemic problem that exists in police departments across the country. Good policies sitting in binders that nobody reads. Officers operating on assumptions passed down from other officers instead of actual written rules. Training that happens once in the academy and then never again. Cole wasn't some rogue cop who wanted people to die. He genuinely thought he was doing his job correctly. He thought crime scene preservation meant keeping everyone out, period. He didn't know his department had a policy saying the exact opposite. That's not just an individual failure, that's a system failure. Think about this. How many other officers are out there right now operating on bad assumptions? How many policies exist that could save lives or protect rights, but officers don't know they exist? How many people have suffered because departments write good policies but never enforce them? The body camera footage from this incident is now used in police academy training programs in 7 states. It's titled Medical Emergencies and Crime Scenes: Understanding Your Department's Policy. Civil rights organizations use it to educate communities about their rights during medical emergencies. Medical schools use it to teach students about the legal protections for providing emergency care. One confrontation on an April afternoon became a nationwide conversation about police training, policy enforcement, and the gap between what's written down and what actually happens on the street. Here's a question for you. How many times have you seen someone in authority who clearly didn't know the actual rules they were supposed to follow? Comment below. There's another crucial lesson here: documentation. Nia recorded the encounter on her phone. The officer's body camera captured everything. Witnesses filmed from multiple angles, all telling the same story. Without those recordings, this would have been different. Cole could have claimed Nia was aggressive or uncooperative. He could have justified the arrest with his version of events. It would have been his word against hers. But the cameras don't lie. They showed Cole refusing to allow medical care. They showed Nia calmly explaining the emergency. They showed the victim choking while Nia stood handcuffed. They showed everything. This is why recording matters. Why body cameras matter. Why citizen video matters. They create accountability that wouldn't exist otherwise. After the lawsuit was settled, several other incidents came to light. People who had tried to help at emergency scenes and been turned away by officers. Nurses, paramedics, even off-duty firefighters who'd been told to back off from situations where they could have helped. None of those incidents have resulted in consequences because there was no video, no documentation, no proof. People had complained, but nothing happened. Nia's case was different because she had evidence. The hospital backed her. The media covered it. The video went viral. That's what forced accountability. But it raises a troubling question. How many people tried to help, got turned away, and had no way to prove it happened? How many lives were lost because officers didn't know their own policies and nobody held them accountable? Let's address something that came up repeatedly when this story spread. Some people said Nia should have just backed off when threatened with arrest, that fighting with police is dangerous, and she was lucky it didn't escalate. Here's the thing, Nia did back off initially. She stepped behind the tape. She called 911 to upgrade the EMS response. She did everything she could within the boundaries the officer set. But when the victim started actively dying, when she heard him choking, when seconds literally meant the difference between life and death, she made a choice. She tried to help anyway. Was it risky? Yes. Could she have been hurt? Absolutely. But she took that risk because her medical oath required it, because a man was dying and she had the skills to save him. Not everyone would make that choice. Not everyone could. And that's understandable. But criticizing her for trying to save a life misses the point entirely. The problem wasn't that Nia pushed back. The problem was that she had to. The problem was an officer who didn't know his own department's policies. The problem was a system that had good rules but never enforced them. So what's the lesson from all of this? First, know the policies that govern the people in authority over you. Cole didn't know his department's policies, but Nia knew the law. She knew her rights. She knew what was supposed to happen. That knowledge gave her the confidence to push back. Second, document everything. Record when you can. Get names and badge numbers. Create evidence. Nia's video was crucial to holding Cole accountable. Third, follow through. Nia didn't just complain to friends. She filed formal complaints with multiple agencies. She used her institutional resources. She saw it through to the end. Fourth, understand that good policies mean nothing if nobody enforces them. The police department had great policies. They just didn't train officers on them. Enforcement matters as much as the rules themselves. Fifth, sometimes doing the right thing requires risk. Nia risked arrest to try to save a life. That's not something everyone can do, but it's something we should honor when people do it. As of now, Cole Turner no longer works in law enforcement. He took a job in private security, then left that field too. He hasn't spoken publicly about the incident. Terrell Jackson recovered from his injuries. He has some permanent cognitive effects from the head trauma, but he's alive. He credits Nia with saving his life by pushing for faster EMS response. Nia is still at County General Hospital. She was promoted to Assistant Director of Emergency Medicine. She trains residents not just in medical skills, but in advocacy, how to fight for patients, how to navigate bureaucracy, how to do what's right even when someone with authority says no. The police department now requires annual policy training for all officers. Every officer must pass a test on critical policies, including medical emergencies at crime scenes, before their annual performance review. Supervisors conduct monthly policy briefings. Complaint rates about officers interfering with medical care dropped by 73% in the 2 years following implementation of the new training. The policies didn't change, the training did, the enforcement did, the accountability did. One doctor, one officer, 8 minutes. And the department was finally forced to follow the rules it had written years ago but never bothered to enforce. That's what happens when someone knows the law and refuses to accept ignorance as an excuse. That's what happens when documentation creates accountability. That's what happens when systems are forced to close the gap between policy and practice. Final question for you. What's one thing you learned from this story that you didn't know before? Drop your answer in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. This story matters because it's not just about Nia and Cole. It's about every time someone in authority operates on assumptions instead of actual rules. It's about every good policy that sits in a binder unread and unenforced. It's about every person who died because someone didn't know the rules that could have saved them. Nia's story shows that you can fight back against ignorance masquerading as authority. You can know the rules better than the people enforcing them. You can document violations and demand accountability. And sometimes you can force systems to actually follow the good policies they already have. Not every story ends with accountability. Not every violation leads to consequences, but this one did, and that matters. The footage from that April afternoon is still available. You can watch a doctor calmly explaining a medical emergency while an officer threatens her with arrest. You can see the moment the victim starts choking. You can see what happens when policy ignorance meets medical necessity. And maybe, just maybe, the next time an officer faces a similar situation, they'll remember this story. They'll remember that their department probably has a policy about medical emergencies. They'll remember that saving lives comes first. They'll remember that good policies only work if people actually follow them. That's Nia's legacy. Not changing policies, but forcing a department to finally enforce the ones they already had. Not creating new rules, but holding people accountable for ignoring existing ones. Not revolutionizing the system, but making the system do what it was always supposed to do. This is the story of how a doctor fought an officer who didn't know his own department's policies and won. But more than that, it's a story about the gap between what's written and what's practiced and what it takes to force those two things to align. Thanks for watching this story all the way through. If you found this eye-opening, make sure you're subscribed because I cover more stories like this that need to be told. Drop a comment letting me know what you think should happen when officers don't know their own policies. See you in the next one.